This is Monica Kariuki, and you're on Echo FM. So today, tomorrow is Valentine's Day. All of you, or most of you, are going to be celebrating, looking for love or whatever the situation. So we're here to talk about love matters. And with us today, we are so privileged to have a very busy youth pastor. As I saw some of you commenting, he is a very well-known youth pastor. I'm going to let him introduce himself. Indeed, is Pastor Tony. Is it T Mwangi? Yeah, Pastor T Mwangi. Please introduce yourself. Tell us how you started the ministry, and just give us a short introduction about yourself.
Well, thank you very much. And again, I'm sorry for just coming late. My name is Pastor T Mwangi. That name T means Tony or Anthony. Born again, the resident pastor, Life Church International Limuru. Also the founder of the Truth Mentorship Society. I believe we have no business to celebrate your crown if we never worked with you during your diaper process. So I believe in mentorship. I'm an author, about that I've penned down a couple of books. One called The Value of a Woman's Worth. Married to one beautiful woman and wife, Waheto Kabi, and blessed the beautiful daughter, Tiffany Wema. That's, I think, brief about me. Media personality, began as a gospel rapper, and I saw the need of the gospel among the people. So I launched out, and the Lord called me into ministry. And that's what exactly what we are doing, winning souls and making sure that our generation is secured with the truth of the gospel. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Pastor T. We appreciate you being here, and we appreciate you rushing because a lot of people are waiting for you. So I listened to you one time on Facebook, and that certain things that you were talking about that really made me feel you needed to come on this platform and talk to us, because you actually talk about those things that I would say a lot of pastors don't talk about. We are so entangled in culture, and so we fail to mention some things, especially you as a religious leader. When you're walking, young couples into marriage, and, even talking to couples that are already married, you have to be able to open up, and you have to be able to mention these things. And that is exactly why I reached out to you, because I felt that was really, really powerful. So let's just get started. And let's get started with parents, for example. When we have young, teenagers, when we have our children, when is the right time for us to start, allowing our teenagers or even our kids to even date, or even a girl to relate to a boy?
The conversation of dating and relating should begin as early as what I may call here, standard 4. The conversation should not become a crisis, but you have to begin from an awareness process. These are an organism, for lack of biologically, these are human beings, an organism that is growing from one stage to the other. And so you don't need to prepare a person when they are already in that stage, but you need to prepare them before they get in that stage and tell them, hey, listen, you're about to get into this stage, and 1, 2, 3, 4 is expected, and this will begin to happen. So as early as class 4, that is our academic structure here. And we are looking between the ages of around, between 10 to 13, around there, so that you are preparing this person before they enter the teenagehood, so that they can understand about everything. And even in preparation, you have to be real. We don't have ideal people. It is the hope that we are going to get an ideal person, but you have to be real. You must share the reality on the ground, because out of curiosity, sorry for that.
It's okay. You're frozen. We think we lost Pastor T. Technology.
Can you hear me?
You're back.
Can you get me?
Yeah.
Yeah,
yes,
back, yeah.
You're back.
Sorry,
yeah.
I was trying to put my phone on flight mode so that nobody calls me at this hour. Sorry.
Okay.
Yeah, all I'm trying to say is that life is in stages. You have to prepare this child before they get into that stage because it's known, and you have to be real. You have to be real. Don't hide anything. Tell them the truth as it's supposed to be the truth. I remember when we were young, we used to ask our parents, so where did we come from? And my mom told me I was bought in a supermarket. And one day we're in a supermarket and I wanted to know where kids are bought. And I had saved some money. And I told mommy, I have money now today, let's buy children. I'm ready. And I remember we went to the toy center and I knew this is the place. And so I guess my mom had to have a conversation with me that night and tell me it's not this supermarket. So we just have to be real. We just have to be real.
Uh-huh.
Yes.
Pastor T, when you say we need to start talking to kids about dating, we're not telling them go look for a boy or go look for a girl, but it is to tell them or prepare them for what is to come, correct?
Yeah, you're telling them that you reach this stage, boys will approach you, or you feel a desire to be with a boy, and you are not sick, you're not abnormal, you're very normal. But now you have to tell them, you have to teach them why they should not date. Because the main problem, even when you deal with young people, the main thing they always ask is, Pasi, is it bad to date when you are this age? But the question they are asking is, why is it bad? Because most of the parents, what they do, they give ultimatums, but they don't give explanation. So this child knows it is bad, but again, they are growing emotionally. There is this attraction, and there is an ultimatum. Don't date, but nobody explained why they shouldn't date. The feelings are there. The attraction is there. By the way, love is mannerless. You can love when you're a very young person. So it is a very mannerless thing, but you need to explain why not now. When that is not well explained, that's when people now become curious and they want to try out things. And in the process, of course, curiosity kills the child. So we have to be real. And I want to tell you, these kids are small, but they are not foolish. The level of psychological development is so high that kids are observing, they are learning, they have questions, and until we approach them with a no and an explanation, a no alone will not work out. A no alone will not work out. Yes.
I remember when I was young, my mom used to tell me that people that go out there, Zurura, are the ones that get pregnant. And I had absolutely no idea what that meant because she never explained. And I just thought if you go out there, you get pregnant, and that was it. And then we were told, if you get pregnant in this house, I will kill you. And we for sure knew that she was going to kill us. So let's go to the next thing. Going by the tradition, Pastor T, how much dating is enough dating? And I've seen this come up on social media. How much dating is enough dating to know that this is the one to marry or this is the person I need to be with?
The first thing is we need to understand that dating is supposed to be a session of data collection. We need to separate dating and mating and dating and feeding program. So dating is a process whereby you have identified a person and you want to collect data. And there are 5 C's. There are 5 C's that are considered when one comes into that level. The first one is called contact. The contact. You see a beautiful person, you see a handsome person, and you get attracted out of physique and appearance. And you just need to know that, good makeup, good physiques, good appearance does not necessarily tell you who the person is, because behind the makeup, there is a real person. Behind the good body and behind all these things, there is the real person. And it is after the contact point that we come to communication. Communication. And this is now in communication, that's why you're trying to get information. You are collecting data. You want to know who are you? What are your values? What's your character? Where are you going? What is your vision? What is your dream? And this communication now can even get intense in terms of, have you ever thought about settling down What is the kind of family do you want? And so communication becomes very key. And this is why people go out. You don't go out to eat. You go out to ask very personal questions and also to be asked very personal questions. So that now from that level, it is out of what men confess that we get a clue of who they are. But remember, you can never confess personality, but you can confess character. You can say, I'm impatient, or I'm this hyper person, I talk a lot. That one you can confess. But personality can only be expressed. And that's why the next C is called conflict. So the first one is contact, communication, and then conflict. And conflict will express maturity. Conflict will express personality. In Kenya, we have these small dogs called Chihuahua, the white, the fluffy dogs, and they are very beautiful. But I tell you, no matter the beauty of this dog, when you step on its tail, you will know that you have a beast in the house, because it will bounce on you. It will, you'll see the claws and the canines and all that, and you'll know this is a friendly dog, but at the end of the day, it's still a beast. It's in the classifications of animals. And the same thing, there are people who can never confess their personality, but conflict expresses who they are. That's how you know how mad a person can be. That's how you know maturity, because maturity is expressed by the ability to sit down and handle conflicts. And there are conflicts that are beyond. That's where two things are revealed, either weakness or wickedness. Now, a weakness is something that a person is working on. Like you can be having a weakness of alcohol, you can be having a weakness of drugs, or a weakness. But wickedness is when now whatever we see as weakness is already embraced as a part of me. You love women or you love men, and you're not ready to change, and you feel you either fit in this life or you bounce. Now that's wickedness. So it is out of conflict that we get to know the person, and conflicts are very healthy. They are very healthy. Don't create them, but allow them just to manifest naturally, because that's when you get to hear the conversation of the hearts. That's when people tell you, let me just be real about this matter. That realness is very key. And then after conflict, that's when people now come to the next level, which is commitment. Many people always say, yes, I'm ready. I've chosen my baggage. I'm ready for this person, and whatever comes. I'm ready. I think I can settle. And then after that, now is the consummation. This is marriage now, whereby you're saying, I offer the whole of me, and I just belong to you. So these stages are very important. I will give an advice. Let it not go more than 2 years. Anyone that is above the age of 25 years, already they know what they want in life. Of course, not all of them. People take different times to mature. But at 25 years, psychologically, even your mind has grown. There's something called the cognitive ability. The coiling and the folding of the mind is already mature. You are able to, you receive pressure and all that. Make sure you work on yourself. Nobody's coming to improve you. So make sure you work on yourself, so that when you sit on that table to negotiate, you have negotiation power. You are not at the mercies of anyone. Nobody's doing you a favor by dating you or even marrying you. You have the ability to negotiate. And this is where now it comes to the place of confidence, awareness, boldness, and esteem. Self-esteem is personal. You must work on your esteem. You must love you. Even the Bible says, love yourself, love your neighbor more than you love yourself. So ideally, it means you need to love yourself first. And then after that, now, let it not be more than 2 years. I want to tell you, anyone that is serious with life, anyone that wants to settle, they will not even wait. But 2 years is sufficient time to know one another. 2 years is sufficient time to know one another, because you can't be an actor for more than 2 years. You can act for 6 months. You can be a hypocrite for 1 year. But I tell you, 2 years is enough for people to know each other. Because whatever goes past 2 years, sometimes you feel one party is not serious. I know there are different circumstances that lead people into an extended relationship. But I want to assume these are people in the same city, in the same town, and they meet frequently, possibly in the same fellowship. Why should you take a relationship for presidential term, a whole 5 years? It doesn't make sense. People, one of the things that will happen is that you'll enter into sexual error. And the moment when people begin to engage in sex before marriage, it opens a gate of mistrust. Because you see, when you get married, you come in as a wife. But when you are dating, you are a girlfriend. Now, when you get married and you're already having sex before marriage, then anytime you see your man with another mistress, you will be like, if you couldn't resist me when I was a girlfriend, what gives me the evidence that you won't resist that girlfriend? Because when I was a girlfriend, you didn't resist me. And so this is for future. It creates a lot of trust, and vice versa is true. Even the man might feel, okay, if I messed up with you when we're still dating and maybe it was so quick, we just went out, took a drink and something happened, I cannot trust you. And this is how we open the door of mistrust. So people ought to stay personally, and I'm not saying this is written in any journal, but my own wisdom, not more than 2 years. If you are serious, you know it's time for me to settle, and deep down you know this is the person, I don't know what else you need to wait for. You know, marriage is the only place where we get a certificate before we go to class. We learn things ahead, but we are certified before. So tunasomea mbele. Yes.
There's a few things you have mentioned there, Pastor T, that are really, really powerful and, eye openers. You're collecting data, and that's not to go for 5 years. This is not a presidential term. Those are like, when you put it that way, I don't think I've ever thought about it that way, because some of us, think that, oh, I need a little bit longer to get to know this person, but you're right. Within 2 years, you could have already known this person. Naturally, as a human being, there's that bad about us that we hide. And if within 2 years it will have come out, then you already know this person. That's really, really powerful. I'm just going to tell those of you that are watching, and those of you, if you could just like this video, share it, because these are some of the things that actually have come up on social media platforms. And this is where you're getting all these answers. So I'm going to ask you guys to please share this video, because this is so powerful. Now, again, another thing that you have mentioned, Pastor T, is sex before marriage. And when we maintain celibacy, before marriage, and these couples then, running a risk of surprises, because we've, and I'm not talking about impotency, because that's something that people can work out. People do not have a marriage doesn't have to have children to be complete. It is good to have children. We all desire to have children. But if it so happens because of medical, then people work it out. But are people running a risk of, surprises during marriage?
There are no surprises. One of the things I will say is that in this level of data collection, you must ask all the hard questions. I remember before we settled with my wife, there is a time she asked me, what are your wildest desires sexually? And what is your fetish? What are your fantasies? Before we even settled in marriage. And coming from a lady, it was kind of uncomfortable for me to answer, because I was like, hey, Kwani, what are you thinking? But, these 2 years, you need to have a conversation. And, it's like you are investigating this person. You need to go beyond what he tells you, interrogate the friends, interrogate people that are close to him, so that when the moment you make that decision, you are sure of what you're talking about. Now, you've asked about the surprises. One of the things that people have never understood is that there are around 7 to 9 levels of intimacy, and sex is one of them. And in fact, when you come to even sexual intimacy, you'll discover that this intimacy is enjoyable when the other 6 are stable. So this has nothing to do with longevity. This has nothing to do with what people call, gay game and all that. When you begin now to settle into a serious relationship, you'll discover that there is what we call spiritual intimacy. We are people of the same faith. We pray together. We believe in the same things. Sometimes you go to church and it was powerful and you wish your other partner was there just to pray together and agree. It's so sad that, you believe in the Bible, the other person is an atheist, and there are many things you see in the Bible you can't share. There is a form of intimacy that comes through that. There is intellectual intimacy. And this has nothing to do with the number of degrees, because you can have all the degrees, but you don't have capacity to, see things objectively and even speak intellectually. And I tell you, there are times people just want to sit down, and it has nothing to do with sex, because when you get married, you don't have sex after every hour. There's a lot of things people talk about. And so there's that connection. We are discussing about Republicans, the Democrats. We are touching about the economy, the Bitcoin, and all these things. And you can sense, wow, we are flowing. We have arguments that make a lot of sense. This one creates a lot of intimacy. We also have what we call crisis intimacy. You're believing God for a visa, the other person is believing God for a visa, and none of you is working. You're all on these jobs that are not permanent, and you are just believing together, and you meet under this tree, you take your ice cream, you enjoy your good time together, and it is a crisis, and it makes you now begin to build castles in the air together. It opens you up, and you are very real and say, this is where I am financially. So sometimes crisis, they also open up a level of intimacy. We also have emotional intimacy, whereby there's just a chemistry, there's just a connection. You feel safe. You feel there are fears you can share. There are things you can just say. You don't feel condemned. You can share your failures. You can share many things, even your past, and you don't feel condemned. And remember, all these things now, they are the ones that culminate to what we call good sex. Good sex has nothing to do with positions. I hope this is past children
It
hour.
is.
That is the misconception with many people. It is not about positions. Those things you can learn. And there is nothing as good as exploring together, as coming to this agreement, having that conversation when you're married and say, this is me. Because I want to tell you, every woman wants to be handled differently. Every man wants to be handled differently. So you can't assume that you're a guru, and this one assumes she's a guru, and you come with your expertise from wherever you collected it. It might even create some tension in that relationship. So it is good. It is good to have this kind of conversation. Some people even go through the process of, before even proposing, they go for a fertility test. And there's no problem with that, because you don't want to end up in marriage and you've said for better, for worse. And this thing comes up. So we need to understand that sex is just a package of marriage. But there are many things that contribute to good sex, even emotional wellness of your lady. The way you treat her, the way you handle her, the way you spoil her, it contributes a lot. It is about the chemistry that people have in that relationship. So if the chemistry is not there, I tell you, you'll just share a bed, and what you just do is like relieve each other of what we may call sexual urges. Otherwise, there is nothing, there is no connection. Sorry to use this word, but it's just going to the urinal, because it's an urgency. You relieve and then you sleep and the other one sleeps. So that's why it has to be there. The other thing, when people begin to engage in sex before marriage, they end up not having the real conversation. Every time they meet, it looks like top on the list is sex. So they lose the natural connection. You realize they cannot even talk. They cannot hang out. They cannot even say, we are just driving to this area. Let's go have fun, then go back home. A lot of energy is now focused on sex. And that is why people end up now engaging, and then you marry a stranger, and then you discover marriage is, people don't have sex every time. There is so much to marriage, and you are there, you're on your phone, the other guy is on the phone, because there was no connection. There was no intellectual connection. There was no connection whatsoever. So, and after 2-3 years, that becomes a very boring marriage. And you begin to look for a person, not a sex object. You say, no, I need a person I can talk to, a person I can pour out, a person I can share things. So that has to be understood, because there is a lot of hype on sex. There is a lot of hype on sex. There's a lot of hype. Yes.
Yeah. Wow. Thank you for that. So let me ask you then, while we are talking about that, in case a couple comes to you and they tell you, yes, we love one another, because I've actually not personally encountered, but I do know of a couple, that got together and, there was absolutely no performance because the guy couldn't, so if they came to you and told you that this is the problem that we have, it could be a medical problem, but what would you tell that couple? Could they divorce?
You see, the challenge here is when you are married, you can go to KFC and grab some fries for dinner, but you can't grab some sex along the way. That's the challenge, because now you are in a covenant. The problem is that when we lead people into vows, they say for better, for worse. That worse has never been described. It's a mysterious worse. And so when they come on that particular platform, this is where now you see the grace of another person. Do they have the grace to stand in your worst? Is the second party also willing possibly to seek medical help? Because I know sometimes men shy away. This is something that is embarrassing. And something that might look like, it's demeaning his nature as a man and all that. But I think I will encourage them to use all right and possible channels to see if they can get help. Because I believe there is nothing under the face of the earth. And I believe it's just embracing a challenge as both of them. This should not be seen as a challenge to the man. When you become a couple, you become a team. So if the man, something happens, like right now, I know when a man is affected with diabetes, their performance level goes down naturally. So and you see, diabetics is not even a lifestyle disease, is an inherited disease. So you can imagine you got married to this guy, he was okay, boom, diabetes happens, and now there are all these medical procedures, and for him, sex is not a priority, living is the priority. So at this level is the place where you pray for grace, because my worst is not your worst in marriage. There are people going through other worst things, so that now you take it as a team, and just see how you can walk through it, because you never know what will happen to the lady after that. The lady might end up becoming also impotent, where she cannot give birth, and that does not mean that now you divorce her, because when you love a person, it's a decision, and you're loving the person irrespective. You're saying there could be challenges, but I just want to love you for you irrespective of what is there, and open that door so that things can be worked out. And there is no marriage that is perfect. There is no marriage that is perfect. What happens is that God gives men grace to deal with the imperfection that is in other people. So on our side, we might feel like, what? That's such a major thing, because for us, sex is such a big priority. But guess what? There are people whose sex is not such a big priority. And they're like, but they can live without this. So it is that place of consensus and carrying each other's burden as a corporate burden, not as an individual burden. So I would advise them to explore all the possible channels, and above all, explore prayer also. It's also a channel.
Wow. Okay. So what about why does our society, African society especially, we frown upon, people that have been divorced or people that are widowed when they start dating again, especially women, we feel that, okay, your husband is passed on. You probably need to say that. Why do we frown upon that?
Generally, globally, we've grown under what we call main chauvinistic society, a society that is dominated by male. And that has also led to the ideology and the psychology of men to be passed as legal laws in communities and areas. It is through women empowerment that slowly we are seeing the voice of the woman slowly now beginning to rise. Because culturally, even when you look at the process of dowry repayment, it looked like you are buying a good from the shop. It's like you have a house, you have cows, and you have a wife. It looked like as a man, a wife falls under your possession. And that's why now there was not much regard to women. And this is a sad reality. It's not even biblically correct, because a woman, both man and woman, all carry the image of the Father. And we cannot say that one is a lesser image. That will be, trying to demean the sovereignty of God. So if a man is in the image, even the woman, so both of them carry the perfect image of the Father. So it is this society kind of infrastructure and culture that brings women to a certain level, and so they have no voice. And then naturally, the way sex is packaged is that it is okay for a man to mess up, but it looks like when it comes to morality, a woman ought to hold herself highly vis-a-vis the man. Because I remember there was an advert in Kenya about Mpango wa Kando. And the advert came the first time, it was a man talking to a man and saying how he has this Mpango wa Kando. Then the second advert came, it was a woman speaking to a woman about Mpango wa Kando. And even the church rioted. There was a riot in parliament. And they said, no, this advert is not right. But statistics are showing a lot of, infidelity in marriages. And they're even saying women are also becoming part of this. So it looked like it is okay for a man to have Mpango wa Kando, but it is not okay for a woman to have Mpango wa Kando. So it looks like when it comes to sexual matters, women suffer more in terms of judgment. And that's why when you lose your husband, it looks like there was another man there who is going to inherit this woman, yet there was another man. But it doesn't look the same when a man loses his wife. It looks like, oh, the wife has gone, another woman can take place. And I think it's a mentality and a psychology we need to deal with, because even Paul says, if you are widowed and you are young, you need to remarry so that you don't end up becoming a prey. And the same men, the ones who now who look like they want to discourage these women to get married, the same married men are the ones who want to go out and offer a helping hand to these women and take advantage of their situation. So it's a psychology that is crafted because of this male chauvinistic kind of ideology that has infiltrated our society. And this is not just Africa. I tell you, it's a global phenomenon. And even the way women are being empowered slowly, you can see a lot of backlash, fighting, and all that. But of course, we are not against women empowerment. We are just saying also biblically, we cannot create competition. We need to empower a woman and tell her, this is you, this is your role, and this is who you are. So that now, again, we don't enter the place of conflict where we have many women who want to be like men, but very few men who want to be like women.
Okay. Now that you have talked about this Mpango wa Kando, let me just ask you a question on that then, because, especially, I don't want to talk about other parts of Africa, but let me talk about Kenya. It has become a norm, a wife at home, not all, but some wives at home, they know that their husbands have Mpango wa Kando out there. And I've actually had some of the women saying, at least I know he has one. And they're okay with that because it's just one, rather than him being all over the place. And then the concubine knows that this is somebody's husband, but they are okay with it. They are okay being a second choice, a third choice, not even the priority, and they know that they cannot call this man at certain hours because he's at home, which means they know that he's a married man, so we all are accepting, this Mpango wa Kando business, and some of the women, they want this Mpango wa Kando because they're probably even getting money. I have a friend that tells me that, she knows of Mpango wa Kando that doesn't even get any money. She's actually beaten by this other person, the husband, not even the husband, So, but why is society accepting, this Mpango wa Kando business?
The first thing, it's so sad that the president signed it into law that polygamy is legal in Kenya. It's so sad. But you see, the president passing that as law, it must have come from somewhere. And that begins to represent the attitude, the temperaments, and the nature, and also the fabric of our society as Kenya. The media has contributed a lot when it comes to these conversations, because naturally it was not something that people are proud of. But the repetition of how people have this side chick, side chick, side chick, it became the order. Majority of the ladies that are dating older men is because of money. We have to accept this is a third world country. There's a lot of pressure to make it in life. There's a lot of pressure to make it in life. And so people are willing to make it at any expense, because in this nation, you are celebrated for what you have, not who you are. You will find socialites who are role models to young children. Yet we know these socialites survive by, sleeping with older men. And so there is such an appetite for money, wealth, and success that people don't care about the process. The second thing is that many men have also realized that without money, you can't get a woman. So this is what I may call a social cycle kind of culture. It is a social infrastructure which is now affecting the psychology. And majority of the men getting to become pangwakando are people who are around 40, 45, 50, meaning that they have labored, they have struggled in the former years. And so possibly at this time, you've set up a home, you have your children, you have an income coming in, and so you have some extra coin. And because of this psychology that women will never follow you until you have money, so people tend to get money so that they can get women. So naturally, all a man needs to do is look for money. And naturally, all a woman needs to do is look beautiful, because all you need is money and all the man needs is money. So the conversation there is, when men get the money, is like now they can use any woman they want, because now you can afford. So you just live carelessly and you forget about the house. And when women are beautiful and they're trying to survive, they just need a man with money, pay my bills, do my nails, and some of them, it's very petty. That's the first level. The second level, which is a little bit psychological, is that sometimes you stay with your wife for long, and after staying with your wife for long, she ends up getting used to what I might call your abilities. The psychology of a man is a man ought to be celebrated every time. So like right now, if there are things I will do in this house, and my wife will be, that one I knew, you can pull that through. And so I miss that element of celebration. I might buy a very old car and my wife will not celebrate it because she knows my ability. But when I park that car in a certain hostel, there is a lady who will get in that car. I'm living her dream. And so there are also men subconsciously who are seeking that approval, but are getting it from the wrong person. So because at home, the wife is fighting you, against you, and looks like she doesn't believe in you. But here you get a young girl who praises you and pampers you, and you're like, you feel like you're a man, because men were created to be celebrated. And so now you begin to date this girl, not even because of sex, just for your ego to be massaged. There is also the element of status quo. People are driving, they're going for all these drinking sprees, and everyone came with their mpango kando, and you're trying to fit into this status quo. You don't want to look like you don't have mpango kando, because it looks like when you are rich or when you are established. And in fact, those men sit and they will tell you I'm married, to tell you there is no relationship between me and you, and I'm not leaving my family because of you, but I'm just here for benefits. I benefit sexually, you benefit financially. So this is not a relationship. So it is made clear from the first time. And so when they meet as a band of men, this is more of status. In fact, it has reached a place where marriage is like a rite of passage. You get circumcised as a man for the communities that believe in that. You go to campus, you graduate, you get your first job, you get a wife. That's another initiation, rite of passage. You build, do a housewarming, you get children, do a baby shower, nini, and then you establish your place. You have two businesses here, and then after that you get mpango kando. So this looks like it is another rite of passage that yes, you are becoming a man. And finally, it's also to show how low we have gone as a society in terms of morals, in terms of spiritual values, because you find an old man who's worthy to be called an uncle by this girl, sleeping with this girl, and you find a young girl who doesn't even care that this is a man the age of his father, looking for this man. So it begins to show you how low we have gone in terms of moral value in our society. And it is also begged and begged seriously in our religion also. Because what we preach in church is not Jesus. The church were turned into materialistic gospel pulpit. So there is so much pressure from church, from the community, from the society to make it. Because you are deemed blessed when you are giving a good offering. You are deemed blessed when you come driving a good car. So now there is too much pressure to make it. And so this one tears just the society apart. And these doors begin to open. And this is not without repercussions. Today, Kenya is leading in terms of single mothers. And when you look 20 years later, this is a crisis because there are children who never grew in a complete model of a family, and they will never know what it is to be in a family. And so we are setting up a system for crisis. And maybe even just to shed the light, the people doing Mpango wa Kando, this is my own research on power of media. These are men and women who grew watching The Bold and the Beautiful. Now this is where you get to know how old people are. The Bold and the Beautiful was a storyline. It was a soap opera storyline about Rich Forrester, his father Forrester, and there was Brooke Forrester, and there was Miss Forrester. Now, Rich Forrester was married to Brooke Forrester, but the father was interested in Brooke Forrester, the wife of his son. And there was an affair going between the father and the wife. This was the longest serving soap opera on national TV and in Kenya. Guess what? It began to program the psychology of a generation. By the time that generation married and became parents, we are now implementing whatever we're seeing in the media. So personally, I also believe the media has contributed. It's in Kenya whereby all the radio stations between 6 to 10, we are discussing marriage issues. I want to believe in the UK, abroad, people discuss economies, politics, policies. That's what people discuss, what's moving the economy. In Kenya today, those conversations are run by comedians. I'm sorry to say this, these are comedians, very gifted in comedy and laughter, but they have no background in family therapy and marriage, and so they're the ones running the shows. They're the top most listened people, and they're the people giving advice and counsel when it comes to marriages, and some of them are not even married. So we are seeing a generation, the media trying to voice issues from not a responsible platform, but from a business platform. These are the trending topics. And so because when you grow in such an atmosphere, one, you feel like this is the normal. Imagine when you wake up every day and men are calling and speaking about how they have their Mpango wa Kando. And you wake up every day and women are calling and they're saying how they have been betrayed. And that is the conversation daily for more than 10 years. Psychologically, you end up believing this is the norm. And even if your husband is faithful, you end up thinking, no, you cannot be faithful. All men out there, they are cheating. So I know you are cheating, but I'm not ready to lose my house or just raise my children and stay with you. So that is something that has also been planted. And I'm just believing God there will be a change when it comes to media, whereby we'll begin to discuss things that build the nation and conversation that drive value so that we can affect what people are consuming.
Well, I mean, I think it is going to take, leaders like you actually saying, speaking the truth and, giving advice, just like you are right now, to open people up because, people believe in what they see on TV. Like I see, again, on social media, a lot of women now want to be carried because, that's what they have been seeing on, media, social media, whatever, because they think that is romantic. So we miss, what romance is. And my romance doesn't have to be the other person's romance, but it is what we see on TV. Now, moving on, society norms, we are evolving, because culture is also evolving. There's a sizable number of people that now, identify themselves as LGBT. What is your thought on LGBT? Actually, when I came to Kenya, the last time I was in Kenya, I think it was 2019, December. And I was surprised to see, not surprised in a bad way, but, because I think that is their decision, not mine. But I saw a really large number of LGBT. What is the church doing about that? And what is your church doing about that? What are your thoughts about that?
The first thing, when you look at LGBT and even the arguments globally, the people who push about LGBT, many people will say, this is how we feel. This is how we feel. We just feel that this is our sexual orientation or preference. And that is where the argument begins, because you don't run life with feelings. There are many things you feel like doing, but you don't do them because there is self-control. But when you dig down when you sit down with an individual from a very personal level, you will discover that a door was open. I went to a school and I found a team of girls they told me they are in charge of lesbianism and, lesbianism recruitment. And they told me, Pastor, don't quote the Bible. Just tell us why it is wrong for us to be who we are. Because these are family. We find comfort, we love each other, and generally we are a family. And I said, basically, I want to understand the background of every one of you. Where did you come from? How are your parents? How are you brought up? And these were like 6 girls, but 4 of them, one of them came from a broken family. The father was very abusive, and because of this, she ended up hating men. The second one came from a very strict home. Don't bring any man in this house. I don't want any pregnancy. The same case, nitakuwa and kill you if you get pregnant. So very strict home. And, she feared her parents, no relationship, nothing. And the third one was raped when she was very young by her own cousin. And the cousin still lived in the same house. And she couldn't tell the mother this was a favorite cousin. And she was like, how do I even begin the conversation? So you can imagine the bitterness and the hatred. The other one was this lady. She's in school. Everyone thinks she looks like a dude. And so she's decided to shave. And that pressure in school. Oh, you have legs. These are like, your broad shoulders and stuff. And the voice was so loud. Her esteem was scattered. And she began to behave like a dude. So she was like the boyfriend of these other girls. So I began to understand LGBT is what is manifesting. But you walk with these people, there is an underlying issue. That is what we don't want to understand. Brokenness, betrayal. These are people possibly who came from homes that are broken. They lost their parents and there is an empty part. Because you look at these people, most of them are looking for family. They are looking for acceptance. They are looking for communion. Others were raped and a door was opened in the spirit sexually. Also in the spiritual side, the Bible says, since they rejected God, he gave them over to their reprobate mind. The mind of a man has a dimension of what I may call craziness. There's a level where I tell you, if you are left to yourself, if there was a global blackout, you will understand we don't have, all humans are not normal. It is only that the light and people knowing us that limits us from some levels of behavior, because the Bible says, they will abandon their natural desire for women and all that. So we begin to see inclination towards other people. So ideally, when you take the scripture, the preaching of the gospel from the people, why is the gospel key? Because there is an element in the Holy Spirit that is called self-control. That self-control means there are these appetites, desires that are trying to manifest, but you have ability to control yourself. It is the same way you meet with a person, you don't know that person, and maybe your sexual appetites are very high, but you say to yourself, no, I cannot sleep with a person I don't know. I cannot sleep with a stranger. Yes, I feel these sexual urges, but I refuse. Now, what is that? You are controlling yourself. Because if we all responded to what we felt, then this globe will be ungoverned. And in Kenya, slowly we are seeing this happening. And of course, there's the level of perversion. It's happening. Statistics even show majority of the people exercising gayism are married people. And when I look at this, because I worked with an NGO and I saw the statistics, when I look at this, I now begin to understand we are dealing with what we call lust. Lust is a spirit. We are dealing with the spirit of lust. In Greek culture, they used to call it the Asmodeus spirit. This was a spirit that recruited men into appetites that were against the natural order of life. So lust is an appetite that wants to be met illegally. It wants to be met illegally. So because of this appetite, you want to meet this appetite illegally. Also, we live in a very intoxicated world. Pornography is now at our disposal. We all have smartphones. A research was done and they said we have more than 66 million pornographic sites. And porn is one of the industry that is making a lot of money globally. So what is happening is that people don't understand that our eyes are gates to our spirits. Whatever we watch begins to affect and interfere with who we are. So by this intoxication of pornography, ideas are planted into the minds of people. Curiosity comes, and you're like, this thing is so much in your mind, and you want to try it, and you want to try it. And some of these habits are quite addictive. I'll get a little bit thorough because there was a study that was done. The ancient way of checking prostate cancer was through using the anal duct. So they will insert their fingers and check on the prostate duct. And they say most of the men went back because there was a form of pleasure that they felt, because that was the former way before now the scanning came. And most of the men engaging, they say the kind of pleasure they feel while having sex cannot be compared to what they feel when you're having sex with a woman. So you are introduced into a system that is very addictive, though it's very shameful. It's the same way we can't say now legalize cocaine because of the feeling it gives men. That's why I'm trying to draw a line. We can't move with feeling because we are humans, we are not animals. There are parameters of operation and all that. So when it comes to where I am and where I pastor, I try to give a biblical view. I also give a society view, and I also give a medical view. And I go beyond the action, and I want to know what is happening to that person, because you are not born like that. There's even a spiritual concept where they say when a child is in the womb, that child has relationship with the mother. So when you are pregnant and you begin to desire for a boy, and maybe you have a daughter, naturally this girl feels rejected. And this is how sometimes you find some people born with tomboy tendencies, because subconsciously there was a formation subconsciously that you are unwanted. So you came feeling unwanted. Some people come behaving girlish. Of course, there's the concept of the chromosomes and all that, but also there's that subconscious. And these are now levels whereby you pray and reverse the desire of the mother and pray that this person will know that God was not confused. God created you like that. You have to embrace yourself like that. And there is an assignment for you as a man or a woman, that kind of communication and observation. And I've dealt with such a case. Two young girls came. One apparently was a daughter of a bishop, and they were going out, and one was a gospel rapper. They were like, Pasi, don't judge us, but here we are. But today, as we're talking to you, they just came out supernaturally, because both of them were dealing with esteem issues. So the issue was not, these were two broken people meeting. So we began just to deal. One of them had never worn a skirt in her life, except high school. So one Sunday we just came, spoke to her, encouraged her, and she came in a skirt, and we were there just celebrating her. We took photos with her and she was so proud, and she was like, I didn't know that this is how I look in a skirt. And the journey began of self-acceptance and self-celebration, and she's one of our leaders today. Amazing, doing amazing stuff. So I wouldn't lock anyone out, but of course I wouldn't also encourage on the pulpit this public manifestation. But I want to walk with you and know where you're coming from. Why is this like this? And then I'll begin to deal with those issues that are not addressed.
So actually, one of the reasons why I was asking you this question, Pastor T, is because, and I like everything that you have just said. I've actually encountered someone that was raped, and out of the rape, she now has a son. And from there, she just hated men. And so she became a lesbian. So that happens. But also, too, I think what I encountered, while I was in Kenya, because I saw young girls that were lesbians, and we had a really good conversation. Not that I was judging them or anything, but out of the conversation, I figured, it is what we see on TV. It is what we see as it's the in thing, and so we try to become that. We also want to be defiant because we are teenagers. There's all that. But what I'm getting at is that in Africa, we tend to say, this is devilish, we need to beat them, we need to kill them, and things like that. But yet, well, I understand, from a Christian perspective, that this is not, approved, and things like that. I get it. But what it is that it is not my decision. It is not my place to tell somebody else who to sleep with, who to be with. And so as African people, we need to understand that it is not in our place to tell a grown-up who they're going to have in their bedroom. What do you say about that? That's just how I think.
I think the infrastructure of society is community. For me, the West, I see a lot of independence. You can live with a neighbor without even knowing the name of the neighbor. It's okay. That's how the West kind of survive. And I want to believe you study the civilization of the West, the Red Indians or the original natives. So everyone is a foreigner in that foreign land. So you went there for your own interest. Another person came there for their own interest. Another one came here for their own interest. So we are all here. We don't care who you are, where you came from, who you worship. That's your life. But when it comes to our African setting, Kenyan setting, you discover that you belong to the community. Even when you get married, you discover it's not you and your wife. Aunties, neighbors have a say. They even sometimes dictate where it would be so that they can come, proximity and all that. So when we look at this particular infrastructure in our nation today, our children are celebrated by the community. The success of a child is the success of the community. The failure of a child is the failure of the community. Because the same way, if you fail today, guess who will carry the blame? It is your mother and your father. People will say, Mwanawanga, that's what we say in Kikuyu, the son of so-and-so or the daughter of so-and-so. Because, and when you succeed, right now, majority of you are out of the nation. I tell you, when your dad and mom stands, they begin by saying, my firstborn is in America, doing 1, 2, 3. They are very happy and the community is happy. When you go to Shags, everyone wants a part of you. They feel you are part of us. You are an inspiration. You encourage us. So that's the infrastructure of our community. And then now we know that our children are raised by a community and the values are planted by the community. And that's why when something goes off, the question is always, where did that come from? Because it's not in us, it's not our value, and it's not part of it. So because of that community kind of fellowship, we discover that here in Kenya, we are accountable one to another. Whatever we do, the community feels you owe them an apology, or they owe the credit. Look at the way we celebrated Obama. The way the guy, he just won, but these are Kenya. Look at the way guys are celebrating Larry Madowo. They are feeling, you guys, you're there. If one of you will declare that you have this orientation, there will be such a backlash because they're like, why are you doing this to this community? Meaning that you have that responsibility to carry it on. So that one becomes, and it is a good thing. I want to say it works and it helps, because when a person feels that they have a sense of responsibility, you're a role model in your own level, I know there are girls who look up to you. Yes, you have your rights. Yes, you can do what you want to do. But sometimes you always look back and say, hey, wait a minute. I know there are these young girls who feel that I'm a role model to them. And because of them, let me lay my life down and just set up the blueprint that I want them to walk into. Because this is how we were raised and this is how we were nurtured. And that's why you realize the rate of suicide in Africa, I mean, even in Kenya, is not very high. Depression, yes, it is checking in, but it is not very high. Because not only do we carry your success, we also carry your burden. Come to our burials. You find the whole village is there. Some don't even know who's being buried. But they're saying this is a member of this community. They will feel their name in that book because they identify with you. And it is a culture that if it's borrowed in the West, it will really help. Because some people might say, you know, it doesn't matter. I was even told some of the biggest gay matches, 70% of the people who match are not gay. They're just saying, Wes, you leave these people alone, but let them exercise their own right. And then they go back to their wives and their husbands. So it's that point of saying, let these people live. And I want to believe if we could import culture or export culture, this will really help even the West, whereby there is a sense of community and you can sense a sense of belonging and a sense of love, and you can feel accountable so that if there's something happening, someone is willing to walk with you, not another broken person. Someone is willing to carry your burden and walk with you and be with you. So for Africa, it may stay like that for a while. And I like it that way. It's really helping. There are many who would have gotten lost, but it's really helping.
Okay. All right. So let's talk about marriage, Pastor. In one of your teachings, I liked what you said, that in 30 years, you had never been told by anyone to put the toilet seat down until you get married. You get married, now your wife is getting upset that you keep leaving that toilet seat up, you know, and you're probably newlyweds and you're like, what is the big deal? You know, it's just a toilet seat. You know, when you get to the toilet, you know, put it down. So I think we start to know one another once people live together. My mom used to tell me, I don't care how long you date, it's the day you start living together. That's when you actually get to know each other very well. You know, so it's possible that in your first, you know, honeymoon time that you may have fights or you may not have fights because you know, you're having a good time. But how do you tell these new couples, you know, how do you teach them, you know, conflict resolution at that time and how to keep the spark on?
Two things. Number one, I'll say anybody that decides to get married, invest a lot in counseling. A lot in counseling. Now, there is no manual credited or approved globally that people will say this is the final marriage counseling manual because of the diversity and also the diversity of lifestyles. Different locations, different things work, other things don't work. But what keeps marriage is wisdom. It's not even prayer. Many people always say you need to be a prayerful wife. We give you this Bible, but I tell you, you can be prayerful and foolish. What keeps marriage is wisdom. The wisdom of knowing what to say, when to say it, and how to say it. Very important. You might say the right thing, but in the wrong place. You might say the right thing, but with the wrong tone. Like we keep on fighting with my wife, and I come and ask, what have you cooked? And she's like, so if it's something you don't like, does it mean you'll not eat? And so I'm asking the right question, but it looks like it is the wrong tone. And you know, and it's those small things. So I'll encourage people, invest a lot in wisdom so that when you get in the house, you will not feel like you are the only ones going through this thing. It is the little things in marriage that count. It is the little things. Today we are wearing masks because of the little virus that we cannot see. So marriages are shaken by the little things. They begin as a request, they will mature as a complaint, and they will erupt as chaos.
Wow.
Please, when you take off your shoes, always place them on the shoe rack. That's a request. Please, when you take off your shoe, place them on the shoe rack. That's a request. At times, it will be the person will take the shoes and place them on the shoe rack and keep quiet. And by the time you discover, the next question will be, how many times will I say, when you take off your shoes, you put them on the shoe rack? What do you think I feel when I take your shoe? You know, now it becomes a big issue, but it began as a request and later it erupted and became a serious issue. So invest a lot in a lot of wisdom. Visit couples that are already married. Get wisdom on conflict resolution. What I'll say, when you are married, it's better you talk much than talk less. It is this talking. Like I remembered, there's a time we had a conflict with my wife. And it was about a remote. I think it was about a remote. I love news. My kind of movies are violent and interrogative. Her kind of movies elegant, Queen stories, England movies, and we can't agree on a movie. And on this day, I wanted to do my stuff, she wanted to do her stuff, and there was tension at that particular time. And what I did is that she really wanted to finish up a series, then she gives me time because I can sleep late. But I insisted, no, news won't be repeated, so let me watch news. She gave me the remote, but that was not willingly. So I watched the news. And the news ended, I gave her the remote, and she was like, no, I'm okay, you can watch your thing, you can watch your movie. Me in my gangster nature, boom, movie, full blast. I feel like I'm in a theater, enjoy. And she sat there, she slept there, and I thought, wow, giving me company. And that was the beginning of chaos. She didn't talk to me. There was no conversation. There was no communication. And we kept quiet and nobody spoke. And I discovered that when she requested that, let me watch this series, there are also things she wanted to say. Like, I'm not planning to watch a movie anymore. This is the last time. I'm planning to go back and next week begin to do a couple of things. She didn't communicate that, but she kept quiet and she was like, if this guy knew what I'm about to do next week and everything I'm doing is because of him, and here he is, he doesn't want me to finish my movie, and the whole of next week I've dedicated, I want to fix his wardrobe, make sure that everything is okay, and here he is, 30 minutes he can't give me. Now you see, something was not said, but I'm here sitting, and person is very mad, but I'm here sitting and I'm like, what's wrong? So when the tension was broken, when she communicated, I understood, and she also got my side of the story, and we discovered all of us were wrong. So it's better more communication than less communication. Number two, explain. Men speak in headlines, but women like details. That's why if two men stand on a corner and two women stand on the same corner and they are given the same topic, after 10 minutes, the men will be done. But after 10 minutes, the women will have just begun. They've just done the intro and they're like, now let's go to the matter. Because men speak in headlines and women speak in details. So anytime a man is speaking to a woman, you need to understand details are needed, not headlines. You must train yourself. The third thing, the speech of a woman carries her emotion. The speech of a man carries his logic. A friend of mine was in a place 2 weeks to getting married. He almost canceled the marriage. And they had this one come. And so the lady requested that the guy drops her to town. And the guy had a Zoom meeting in less than 30 minutes. And there was traffic. And the guy was like, I can't go to town and come back. And the lady said, so you want me to die with corona because I can't use a mat? And the guy said, it's obvious. If I can't go, so you just get an Uber, I'll pay. You see, that's logic. These are guy thinking logically, because it was like, funny, these girls don't understand. Logically, you just take an Uber and you go to town. And I was willing to pay. What was the problem? And I was like, you see, in this conversation, the woman knew you have a Zoom meeting, but she wanted to feel that she has a man who cares. That you're like, oh, let me call an Uber because I can't drop you. Then once the Uber drops you, let me know, then I'll pay the bill. You see, Even the woman knows you couldn't leave the house, but she wanted to feel that he is a person who cares. So that question was not to be answered logically. She was introducing her emotions. So you're supposed to address the emotions and not the logic, because she's becoming emotional and ununderstanding. You're becoming rational and unemotional. So that's a conflict already. So that mastering, that there are times a woman will speak from the womb of her emotions. And at that time, the logic does not make sense. Those are the times you apologize even when you don't need to. Those are the times you accept everything even when you know some things are not real, because you are dealing with an emotional person. And even at that level, even the women know whatever they are saying does not make sense, but they just want to, it's that kind of place, yeah? And if there's also a time when a man becomes a small boy and is just nagging, he just needs attention and to be pampered and all that. So it's an amazing journey. The best thing you can do is enter marriage without expectations. Don't expect the woman to be like your mother or your ex. Don't expect the dude to be like your ex or your father. Just enter without expectation and build your house together. Because when you have expectations and they are not met, like I am late, you should have fixed dinner. That's an expectation. And you come, you're late and dinner was not fixed. And you're like, really, this is common sense. You can't fix dinner. It is not common sense. At around 7, you would have communicated and said, I'll be late. Please, will you mind fixing dinner? There is 1, 2, 3 in the fridge, and the person will fix dinner. So don't assume that because you have a brother or a sister who used to think ahead and do things ahead, that this is automatic for every man or for every woman. That is why communication every time, let it be so much so that you can have a reference of quoting and not have a reference of saying, I thought you knew. Because that's an assumption. You're trying to make me think like you, but I'm not you, I'm unique. So that will be my advice. And of course, invest in a lot of materials, reading a lot. Visit couples, hear their stories. Sometimes by hearing a story of a couple, you're like, okay, so this problem is not unique to us. And also that's how they handle their issue. Because some people argue and they think this is it, man. No one is going through what you're going through. No one is like my hubby or my wife. You listen to other people and you get the wisdom and you're like, I was wrong here. I think I need to be better and wiser next time. Yes.
Well, because of time, I'm going to start rushing here. So something else that I learned from you, Pastor T, and you mentioned about in-laws, that if you needed to send money to your in-laws, it comes from you, and vice versa. If money needed to go to your side, your wife sends it. Can you talk about that, and how could people protect themselves from in-laws?
The first thing is the maturity of the two people. And most of the time, sometimes we have mommy's boy, daddy's girl. That kind of thing is there. And the moment you open a door and you try to look like you're not mature enough to manage your home, I tell you, mommy will manage it from far and daddy will manage that home from far. So it is the wisdom of communicating to this other party that, hey, I have another home and I'm under another authority, and there are things that we do. We are not saying that it is cast on stones, but we are just saying don't open that door, that you have side conversations with family members and your wife or husband is not aware, whereby they interrogate you about your marriage. How is your wife? What is she cooking? How is her cooking? How is she doing? And you are here possibly speaking things that are sensitive to your mother, and your mother begins to view your wife differently. Like you might even say, yesterday even I'm the one who cooked. And it's like, Kwani, what kind of wife did you marry? Is it that she's lazy or anything? So that now you audit what you communicate to the other party, and there is that one-on-one communication about the in-laws. Some in-laws have no barrier. Others feel entitled, and they feel where you are, your success is because of them. And so they feel they are entitled even to your own salary. They look and they're like, what is this couple doing with 100,000? This is too much money at their age. What are they doing with it? And so you might even feel like there is a micromanagement. They want to involve you in family projects. They want to involve you in family investment. And It is not bad. If you agree as a couple to be part of it, no problem. But the pressure should not be coming externally. We must come to a place of saying, this is us as a couple having agreed that we are putting our money here, or we are doing 1, 2, 3. Some relatives, or even relatives and even parents, they can mismanage, because I've seen women who push their daughters to be married by a rich man so that the mother can benefit financially. So already you see from that point, the mother might begin to call the husband, but you know what she needs is money. And so you know genuinely, or you can even not even push. Sometimes genuinely, God just blessed you, got married to a man with money. And there is no problem, and he's such a good person. And you know he will never say no to your mother. And you're like, I know my mom, or I know my dad, and we're not speaking ill of our family members, but I think we know some of them. They have no limits. They can overturn his account and put him in all projects, and you're like, no. Babe, anytime you want to send money, let me know. I know my people, and let it be coming from me, so that now I limit, I audit, and I try to protect you and us, so that we are not abused. So is that just drawing a fence and saying, this is an independent home, the accounts of this house are decided, and some parents will push that conversation of, oh, so since you got married now, you don't want to support us. And at that time, the way you react is very important, because you must tell them, this is me, this is my wife, and I don't think you need to use that statement again, because this is my home. The same way I don't interfere with your home, I also expect that there will be some level of parameters. And it takes wisdom even to close some of those doors, to tone down on the amount. So part of the wisdom now is, anytime you decide to send money on this side, let the wife send and communicate and say, Mom, did you receive the money that is from us? And so and so saying hi. Anytime money is being sent this side, you can send and say, hi, Dad, did you receive the money that is from us? We just wanted to say hi. Slowly, you are communicating that, this is an independent home. This is an independent home. Yeah.
Okay. All right. And what about, so tomorrow is Valentine's.
Even to close some of those doors, to tone down on the amount. So part of the wisdom now is,
okay, I'm having an echo. I don't know why. Dorothy, I think that's you. Dorothy, can you mute? All right. Dorothy, can you mute? Thank you. Okay. All right. Sorry about that. So, Pastor T, tomorrow is Valentine's, and we've talked about social media, and it is okay, because social media is here to stay. We watch so much about, you talked about, the bold and the beautiful, so some ladies out there are waiting for flowers and chocolate, but some romance doesn't translate to, a husband material, or how actually marriage is going to be. It's not that it's going to continue that way. But how do we continue with romance, from the dating and to marriage? How do we continue with romance? And how do you even translate romance anyway?
The first thing is, make sure that in all your plannings, you include your wife. In all your plannings. If you have $10 today, let your wife, the person you love, be part of that $10 budget. So that the day you'll get $1,000, she'll also be included, because people think you need more money for you to be more romantic. No, we begin from what we have. If you can't plan with the $10 with high in mind, even the day you get 1,000, you still have more needs. Secondly, there are different love languages. There are people who don't mind the flowers. They don't mind the chocolate. They don't mind that kind of treatment. And it is their love language. There are people, you bring all the flowers, they look at you and feel, did it really make sense? The most important thing would have just stayed indoors, cook, pillow fight, watch a movie, and just, hang out together, or go somewhere, fish, and just have our time together. There are people, it's about public display of affection. We hold hands from one street to the other, take selfies, make other people feel like they're not in love and they've never fallen in love. And that is their nature. So you just need to understand what is the love language of this person, so that you don't end up doing things out of tradition, but you end up doing things because you know and understand this person. And you know this is exactly what brings joy to them. And you hit the right button and you hit the right chord. Continuing is that when you make celebration of love to be an event, it automatically tells me the person you're with is not part of you. It means now you have to wait for that day for you to do it and then continue. If you love a person genuinely, you will always think about them. You will always want the best for them. You see something, you remember them, you just want to grab it and send it to them and all that. So if a person is part of you, in fact, the Bible says, you know, the same way a man loves his body, that's how you need to love your wife. I can't clothe my body badly. I wash it. I make sure it's smelling good. So that's how I'm supposed to love my wife, because she's part of me. So I need to remember her daily. I know what makes her happy and make sure that she's happy every day. And once in a while, randomly spoil her, take her in a place, not necessarily when it's Valentine's. Just let her be happy and let her know that, you know, she has a man in the house, and this should be sustained. This should be sustained. Yes.
So I'm looking at what some people are saying here on Facebook, Pastor T, and I see Lucy, she says that back by public demand, bring Pastor T back. And then I see Maggie, Pastor, she says, Danny, Pastor T can afford. I don't know what she was responding to, but I learned something new. The speech of a woman carries her emotion and a man carries logic. I see you, Danu, Lois, Jerry, Easy her. I'm not sure what she was responding to, but I do see quite traffic here. I can't read all your comments, guys, but I do see all of you. And yes, Lucy, we will talk to Pastor T and see if we can bring him back. You have to give us specific questions, see, and what you want him to come and talk about. Baby crying. So do you think there are people born that way? Okay, so this is a question from Lois, and she's talking about LGBT. So she says, so do you think there are people born that way, LGBT, not necessarily that a door was open?
I think I shared about the spiritual side of the feelings of the mother, whereby the child grows feeling rejected as a woman, and now or rejected as a man, and begins to develop tendencies of either feminine or masculine. But we cannot verify that. It cannot be justified scientifically, but we can verify it spiritually. And in such a matter, it is where now we teach on parents in terms of accepting what God has blessed them with. And we also pray for that person for a reversal, because some of them, because of their behavior, they end up now attracting, you know, the wrong kind of attention, because people think, you know, you're behaving like this, so you must be one of these people. So we cannot fully say that people are born, because remember, life is a choice. Life is a choice, and everything we do is a decision. Everything we do is a decision. It's the same way you can be born in poverty but refuse to be poor. So I believe there are circumstances that we can find ourselves into, but we need to be empowered enough to refuse the circumstances and live beyond that thing that was to define us. So I wouldn't conclude and say there are people born that way. It's good also to understand. It's good to understand that this is an end time spirit. You know, there are two things that Jesus said before his second coming. One is, as it was in the days of Noah, so shall it be before my second coming, and as it was in the days of Sodom. So we begin to see these similarities. The day of Noah, by then the population of the world was around 8 million people, and it was a day of advanced technology. This is a whole civilization. When you study the pre-flood generation, it's a whole system. Because when you look at the kind of vessels that Noah prepared, there's a lot of architectural design, engineering work. You know, just going in detail and looking at the age you're living in, you can see an infrastructure that carried a lot of intelligence when it comes to the disciplines of science. When you look at the days of Sodom, you know, these men wanted to sleep with the angels. So, and in fact, some manuals say It was so bad in Sodom that people would put beds in the streets and just have sex. So sex had lost its place in the community. And that's exactly what slowly we are beginning to see. That, this liberalism and, people now coming out in a very liberal way. And yes, people are like, well, this was not normal. But they feel like, okay, who are we to stop you? It's your life anyway. So slowly when we begin to see this, we are seeing an atmosphere being formed. Now, when there is an atmosphere, atmospheres dictate what grows in an area. You can never grow tea in Mombasa, neither can you grow coconut in Kericho, because the atmosphere matures and becomes a weather matures and becomes a climate. So it reaches a place, you go to a city, like in the West, Las Vegas. You study, Las Vegas has been in that trade for more than 50 years. You enter Vegas today, you can sense spiritually you are in another territory. And whatever happens in Vegas is normal to the people who are there. They don't see any problem because now it's a climate. You enter there, you try to do a church in Vegas, it may not survive because the climate has been sustained for long. So when climates are sustained and it's, spirituality and all that, suddenly some things now become normal, they become ordinary, and people are like, no, it's obvious, this thing. So we need to understand also the time we are living in, and these are days when we are seeing fulfillment of prophecy in front of our own eyes. So as believers, we just need to stand and pray a lot. Yes.
So last question that I'm going to take, and this is from Gimita, and she says there are also pastors who have mpango wa kando. Why is that?
I'll say last. Jesus spoke about lust. By the way, lust is the door of all sexual immorality, because lust is a legal appetite, because sex is not a demonic appetite. Desires of sex were put there by God, so they're not demonic. So these are legal appetites, but want to be met illegally. They want to be met illegally. So that's the first thing. You realize that there are many pastors struggling with lust, and so now they want to sleep with other people. The second thing, power is attractive, whether political, economic, or even spiritual. You're standing before 1,000 people, you are in command, you are celebrated, everyone looks up to you. And there is something in women that attracts them to power. And that's why anytime a man becomes a real authority in the house, that woman feels attracted, because that name submit in the Greek rendering, where the Bible says, wife, submit under your husbands, it is a word that was borrowed from a military camp, whereby there are soldiers who submit under a commander because of rank. So it doesn't mean that I'm not a soldier. I've recognized power, I've recognized authority, and I'm recognized rank, so I'm submitting. So it is the same thing. So you begin to understand, a woman can never submit when she does not recognize rank, authority, and power. And that's why any man that doesn't exercise that, the woman will struggle when they are paying the bills, when they're the ones calling for meetings, when there's a crisis and the woman is saying, can we talk? No, we can't live like this. That woman will not submit because she's not sensing authority and rank. So it becomes very hard to submit. So where was I heading to before I brought that conversation?
You were talking about we are attracted to power.
Yes. Now, you realize that when a man of God, in fact, my spiritual mother told me, you look very handsome when you're preaching, vis-a-vis when you're seated, because that level there is, there is this power and all this. And some people and some pastors also take advantage, because there are people who generally look up to you, they admire you, and they trust in you and all that. The other thing is when ladies become so comfortable sharing their personal issues with a man. Remember, a pastor is a man, then of God. So there are things you might share, and I've seen it. And sometimes there are things a lady will begin to open up and say, are you comfortable to share that with my wife? Because the moment you begin sexual conversations with a man, naturally there is a door you are opening. By the time you meet with that person, you already feel like there's a form of nakedness. You know me too much. So there's a level also ladies reach and they become so open. Like I remember someone was talking to me and she was saying, now, Pastor, my husband works in Qatar. He comes twice after every 2 years. So how do you think I'm surviving? And I'm like, am I your husband? So such question. And you can imagine maybe at that particular hour, your wife is very, very pregnant, almost delivering. You're not even having sex with her at that particular time. And then a lady begins to tell you how she's sexually starved on this other side. And I'm a man. So we need to draw barriers and say, hey, this is a man, this is not God. I will only open up to this level so that we don't begin to these conversations that are very intimate. And I tell you, there is a barrier, even in a relationship. There are conversations you begin, and it's like you have done ice breaking. Suddenly you feel so open, you feel so free, you feel, wow, this guy, we are always real. And that is what opens a door for many people. Some pastors are just wicked. They began very poor. They didn't have anything. Now they have money, and this church has grown, and they have all this wealth at their disposal. And now it looks like it is time to enjoy life. And so they are doing what any other man is doing outside there because they forgot about the calling. So it is also a place of carelessness and people just living lewdly and carelessly. And I know several. I know people who are like that. I know people who even date members of the church. You even realize the praise and worship knows this girl, the girlfriend, even the wife knows it. It's so sad that society has reached to such levels. Yes.
Wow, Pastor. So I'm going to give you a chance to, maybe say or give advice out there if you want to. But the most important thing, I would like for you to pray for families.
Okay, I'll just say this. God created male and female, and God said, and God blessed them. One of the reasons why marriages are being fought is because God never blessed him or her. God blessed them. So there is a blessing in them. And until we come to that understanding, then it's going to be a problem. The second thing is that God never created man and woman for just an emotional relationship. God was thinking destiny and purpose. Adam was in Eden when Eve was brought. Eve was not a lover. Eve was a suitable helper. So God is not in the business of bringing lovers. God brings a suitable helper. So you must ask yourself, am I in Eden? Am I in purpose? And do I need help? Because the question was, it's not good for man to be alone, not lonely. So God was not dealing with an emotional issue. He was dealing with a numerical issue for the fulfillment of the assignment. And finally, I'll say marriage is destiny. Love is a decision. You choose who to love. You choose who to marry. And you must make your choices well informed. Never ignore the red lights. Vows on the altar, they just usher us into a covenant. They don't change anybody. So when you see the red lights, you better run early. So whether you wear a white gown or a white suit, you don't become a new man after the prayers and after the proclamation. It's just permission for the two to live together. Marriage does not begin after the altar. That is when the covenant begins. Marriage began the day you said we are going out and we are ready to settle. That's when marriage began. So if you are fighting now, believe you me, you will fight later. And finally, this is my wedding ring. The reason why it's called a ring is because in this ring, we fight for points. We don't fight for distraction. When you understand the laws of boxing, every punch must have a point, and you know where to punch so that you can get the point. So our punches are therefore value. And so we don't beat below the belt, because in this wedding ring, we don't get out of the ring. We fight and reconcile. And these rings are not blings. So you need to understand the importance of these things. There are many things I can say, but allow me also now to just share a word of prayer. Father, in the name of Jesus, I thank you. I thank you for everyone that has tuned in today. And I thank you because I know you have communicated to them. And I know, oh God, this word and this insight and counsel was ordained for them. Father, I declare right now that let them that have desired to enter into marriage and settle in marriage, let the grace abound. I declare families are being healed, and this wisdom will help us to be like wise builders. We will build on the right ground, and on the right foundation, and our marriages will work, and we will enjoy the company, the children, and the blessing of marriage. Thank you for this platform, oh God, and thank you for everyone that has tuned in. May this wisdom become a yardstick to help them in navigating through life. And it is in Jesus' name we do pray and believe. Amen.
Amen.
And amen.
Amen. Thank you so much, Pastor T. I know you just got home and came right on. I can hear the babies crying. Probably baby wants to bond with dad. So thank you so much for giving us your time today. And you know, like Lucy said there, we need Pastor T back. So we need Pastor T back. I think we have a few more things we would like to discuss. And thank you for all that insight. Honestly, I think I have learned a lot myself. So go be with your family. And for those of you that have been watching, we've been talking to Pastor T all the way from Nairobi, Kenya. We shall bring him back for more discussions. And thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you, Pastor T. Bye, everybody.
Thank you.